At ease, Commanders. Today we're going to talk about how to use the Mechanicum Krios Battle-Tank Squadron in your games of Legions Imperialis. We'll start first with an overview of the detachment and its characteristics, weapons, upgrades, and special rules. 100 points gets you the base detachment of 3 Krios. They have an 8-inch move, a save of 3+, a CAF of +2, morale of 3+, and a single wound. The standard Krios is armed with a Krios lightning cannon and Volkite caliber sponsons. The lightning cannon has a 22-inch range, fires 2 dice, hits on a 5+, and has an arc front trait. The Volkite calibers have a 12-inch range, fire 1 die, hit on a 4+, and have the accurate, deflagrate, light, and point defense traits. The only upgrades we can purchase for the Krios Squadron allow us to increase the number of tanks within the detachment. In general, I would recommend that you take larger detachments rather than a greater number of smaller detachments. For games under 2,000 points, I would recommend at least 6 tanks per detachment, while games above that limit should probably have 9. While a smaller number of detachments will reduce your ability to react to different threats on the table, it will give your detachments greater resilience against enemy fire, something its moderate armor value requires. The Krios has no special rules. Now that we have a basic understanding of the Krios battle tank, let's consider its strengths. The most important one is the strength of its main gun. The lightning cannon is an excellent gun with a high rate of fire and a strong AP value. It's effective against every unit type, and although its accuracy is not high, its rate of fire makes up for this deficiency. A strong detachment of these tanks will do significant damage to any armored or otherwise target. Another strength of the Krios battle tank is simply the fact that it is a vehicle. The Mechanicum as a whole are fairly vulnerable to light AT and even light weapons, and including some of these vehicles in your army is going to give it some additional durability and require your opponent to allocate more significant weaponry to contend with them. Its movement of 8 inches, while generally unexceptional in the broader scope of Legions Imperialis, is strong for the Mechanicum and is going to provide some much needed maneuverability to your Mechanicum force. The Krios does have a few weaknesses, however, the primary being the restricted firing arc of its weapons. Both its main gun and its defensive sponsons can only fire to the front, meaning that careful placement of the Krios is vital to effective engagement of the enemy. Maintaining the initiative will also be important, as the enemy may be able to maneuver outside the firing arc of the Krios if the Krios moves into position too early in the turn. Another major weakness of the Krios is its armor save. While unlike many Mechanicum units, it is immune to light weapons as a vehicle. With only a 3+ save, the Krios is going to take regular casualties even from light AT weapons, and any serious AT fire is going to quickly destroy the detachment. Because of this, it will be very important to make best use of cover and line of sight to avoid placing the detachment in too much danger. Because the Mechanicum presently do not have any heavy armored units available, without resorting to allied units, the enemy will be able to devote the entirety of his anti-armor efforts to the Krios. While the Krios' detachment size is one of its strengths, it can also be a significant weakness, especially if playing on a terrain-heavy table. Detachments on the larger end can easily become canalized or bogged down in difficult or obscuring terrain, negating their movement advantage and preventing them from directing their full firepower at a desired target. This is especially exasperated by the restricted firing arc of the Krios' main gun. When placing such detachments on the table, be sure to do so where they will have a large enough movement corridor to effectively deploy into combat formation and engage the enemy. In general, the Krios' lower armor value and limited firing arcs make it best suited to a static defense. While its movement may suggest a role in a more mobile defense, the restricted arc of its main gun make it vulnerable to a flanking movement by the enemy. If the battlefields in Legions Imperialis were of greater depth, this weakness would be less pronounced, as the defense could develop vertically rather than horizontally. Instead, a role in a static defense seems more suited to the Krios. In this role, a smaller detachment of Krios may be added to your retained combat groups, allowing you to place them in an advantageous position to engage advancing enemy armor, preferably canalized by the terrain onto the Krios' guns. The addition of vehicles to a Mechanicum retained combat group is going to add complexity of unit type, requiring the enemy to dedicate a different mix of combat power to reduce your defense. The Krios will encounter some of the same issues on the offense as we described in the mobile defense. Its restricted firing arc makes it vulnerable both to flank attacks and to rapid enemy maneuvers in general. This becomes even more pronounced the deeper the attack presses into enemy territory. Because of this, we likely want to deploy the Krios on either the left or right wing, as this will secure their respective flank and prevent a double envelopment of your offensive push. The Krios will provide some significant offensive punch against every unit type at a decent range, but its low armor value results in a lack of staying power. A large detachment will help with this, but in general, it will be vital to support your attack with other units of varied type in order to be able to seize and retain an enemy objective. When positioning the Krios Battle-Tank, as always with armor detachments, we want to ensure that we have sufficient sight lines to engage the enemy we wish to engage with our weapons. We also want to make sure that we have sufficiently wide movement corridors that will allow our detachments to move swiftly up the table without being canalized, while still maintaining the ability to deploy to engage enemy forces. If intended for an offensive role, try to deploy them toward the flanks, while in the defense, smaller detachments should be placed in cover to control likely avenues of advance of enemy armored units. In this video, we have examined uses for the Krios Battle-Tank in both the offense and the defense. And as seems appropriate for a unit of the Mechanicum, it is capable of performing well in each of these roles. However, as would also be expected of a Mechanicum unit, it does require careful and thoughtful employment in each case, and must be supported well with other detachments in order to be successful. That's all for now, Commanders. Dismissed.